Notice filed with the Courier Post on May 29, 2013. Notice filed with the Birmingham County Times on May 29, 2013. Mrs. Sugars, will you please call the roll?
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Pugh?
Present.
Mrs. Sawin? Here. Mr. Simeon?
Here.
Mr. Weinstein?
Yes.
Mrs. Zajac? Here. Mrs. Goldenberg? Here. Mr. Mishler?
Here. The first order of business will be to open the floor to public comment. As at the last meeting, I'd ask you to share the time allotted with the other people who would like to speak this evening. And please give us your name and address, and we have a microphone here. So if you would like to address the board, the floor is open. Raise your hand, please, and I'll recognize you. Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Trapani. I just have a question for Lynn Sugars and then a possible follow-up. My understanding, and I think our understanding here, is that these discussions have centered around subcontracting and a couple different things, without the real focus being on had this board voted to budget to cap, would there be the financial issues that we are currently experiencing? Yes or no?
This bid was done after the board settled its budget, so whether they went to cap or not does not affect this issue.
So then, saying that we're doing this to save money is post the budget.
Right.
So if we're doing this for a financial reason, then what is it?
Well, there's certainly, it's a multi-year contract, so there'll be savings over a number of years, not just next year.
Right, but then if there were savings to be had, if the board had budgeted to cap, these supposed savings would be in addition, or would be cutting off what we, already said we're not spending. I mean,
well, these savings are already in addition because this process happened after the budget process.
right, so the financial crisis that is being said this is going to save us money, like, where's the crisis if we had budgeted to cap? Would we not have the money to take care of these financial issues?
I think the issue is looking at long-term savings over a 3-year contract, not just necessarily in the next budget year. So it'll help us in the future as our budgets get tighter.
Right, but the budgets are tight because the board didn't budget to cap. I mean, every other district in the area has budgeted to cap.
Well, the board's reason, or whether they went to cap or not, doesn't affect this particular issue in this next school year. Because we had already settled the budget prior to this process. But I do think in the future, as we look at 2% caps and tighter budgets, that certainly the cost savings would be beneficial.
But it remains that what I think I and other people have heard is that we are in a financial crisis, and therefore this is why we need to realize these savings now. I'm sorry, did anyone else hear that? Yes. Okay, so my question is, had we budgeted to cap, as most other districts have done, with no vote to the public and generated the funds, would we be in the financial crisis that we're going to be in next year?
But when I look at
Well, actually, I was asking Lynn, so if she could answer, and then I'd be glad to hear from you.
yeah, well, I'm going to answer. Okay, so
Okay, well, please, that now.
my
First off, this is rude. I'm asked Lynn a question, and you are not going to treat me as if you can just bully and be nasty to me. I asked Lynn the question. Thank you.
I'll tell you what, here's what
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna stand up here and be treated this way. So I'm sorry. I asked Lynn a question.
I think the issue is that you have to look at each budget year separately. You know, as we look into the future, we know that we will continue to have caps, and we know that we'll continue to have increased costs in salaries and benefits and all of those things. I think you can't budget in a bubble, and you can't just budget year to year. You have to look at the future. And as we look at the future and we look at, you know, rising costs every year, health benefit costs, salary costs, and 2% caps on our budget, we have to make decisions sometimes that will affect us, you know, over a long period of time. So are we in a financial crisis per se for the next school year? I wouldn't say we're in a crisis. I would say there's some things we are concerned about. Will we be in a financial crisis in the following year? I can't answer that question right now, but certainly we have to do anything we can, when we can, to make sure that in the future we don't find ourselves in a financial crisis.
Okay, but all the things you just mentioned, we have to look at, you know, benefits, salaries, all those kinds of things. Wouldn't some of those issues been taken care of had we budgeted to cap? Not taken care of completely, but would have addressed some of the issue.
Well, we settled our budget this year. We didn't go to cap, but we were able to cover our costs as we're estimating them for the following school year. So again, I don't know that the cap issue for the next school year is really an issue at this point. Our budget's been settled, we're moving ahead.
But we're being told though that the reason why we need to subcontract is to save money. So we may have covered our costs, however, there were other costs to come up, which you just mentioned. So if you had budgeted the cap, next year, obviously you would have been able to budget based on a different number, and by all means going from different superintendents or financial experts, people who teach school law, school finances. I mean, the question that our research has yielded for us is that why would a district not budget to cap? They don't have to take it to a vote, and surely not only not budgeting the cap, but then lowering it on, you know, the day before it was due is another effect. So the issue is, I think, answer me, would we not have had more available funds to deal with some of the upcoming issues had we budgeted to cap? I mean, yes or no?
Not necessarily.
We wouldn't have had more money available to
We
us?
would have had more money, but I think, you know, it doesn't go to a vote, but I think the board has to weigh not only district needs, but taxpayer, you know, capability. And you know, they have to look at the whole picture. And I think that this board has traditionally done a very good job of that. They've tried to be conservative when they can. And in the future, if we have to raise the cap, we have to raise the cap, and that's what we'll do. But, you know, I think that in terms of this budget year upcoming, you know, we're not in a crisis per se, but I do think we have to start planning for the future.
Well, in the year upcoming, will we not be short around $800,000 from what our current budget is?
Not that I'm aware of.
So there's not going to be a shortfall next year?
A shortfall in what? I'm not exactly sure.
Well, in being able to provide the same services that we provide now without subcontracting.
We're not in a shortfall of $800,000 for next school year. We
The
have to balance
next
our
budget, not this coming school year, the following year.
Well, you know, I can't answer that. All I can tell you is that there's a couple things I'm concerned about. One is the fact that we used a tremendous amount of fund balance in the budget this year. We had to, by state law, to do that. That will lessen the amount of fund balance we have in the future, and that's less of a revenue source for us in the future. How do we make that up in the future? Perhaps that's the point where we give a 2% cap. The other thing that I'm concerned about is the rising healthcare costs that go up every year. We are not, you know, our contract expires June 30th. We don't know what our salary costs are going to be next year. So if we can cut corners in certain places and save money for the future, then I think that's something that we need to take advantage of.
But had we budgeted to cap this year, some of those issues would have been lessened because you would have had more money to deal with the rising cost of healthcare and other items that have come up. I mean, it's simple math. If you budgeted to cap, you would have generated more money.
You would have generated more money, but it's simple math that I have to turn in a balanced budget. So the budget that I turned in is revenues equal expenditures. I can't have a shortfall in my budget when I turn it in without making some kind of an accommodation for those costs. You know, we've estimated our salaries for next year. We know what our healthcare costs are going to be for next year, and that's what we input into our budget.
Right, but not for the next 2 years out.
Well, no, because you budget on an annual basis.
Right, however, people who do budgets also look at long-term planning, and that's actually how certain other issues are resolved.
Correct.
Exactly, which is not done, because if we're just looking at the next year, then what does that do for us for 2 and 3 years out? I mean, I don't know of any company that just actually looks at 1 year at a time. I think they look to the future. The point here is that we are under the understanding that the reason for this subcontracting, and even the discussion about subcontracting in the Paris in the future, is because it will save money. And so, if we had budgeted to cap, we would have not as much money to worry about saving, because it would already be in the budget to take care of these issues. That's the concern. And if it were a situation where you had other districts saying, oh yes, we'll budget 0.46, I really don't think that the vast majority of other districts in the state are doing something that is, I don't know, like far-fetched or out of this world. If most of them are budgeting to cap, there's a reason why they're budgeting to cap. Right or wrong? It can't be that most of them do it and it's not the right thing to do. So there has to be something here that is different. And that's our issue.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Dever, 310 North Stanwick Road. I'm wondering, on these companies that we use for subcontracting, what type of criminal background check do they go through? Is it the same companies and the same process that we as public employees have to go through?
Yes.
Same companies?
Yes.
Okay. How about TB? They have to go through that too?
Yes, they do.
Same as us?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name is Mary Green. I live at 125 Schooley Street. I'm also a family and consumer science teacher at the middle school. I had no intention of speaking tonight. Why I sat next to the microphone, I don't know. I would just like to acquaint you, I'm concerned about the outsourcing of paraprofessionals and the WAM's night custodial staff. I spend many long hours here after the custodial staff has changed from daytime to evening. The people that are here are familiar to me. I feel safe. They are going out of their way to assist me with bringing in groceries and so on. You may not be aware that my classes were asked to participate this year in a graduate study with Rutgers University and the University of New Mexico. And after being involved with the study on food safety and sanitation and education thereof, there was a key component that needed to be provided by the custodial staff in terms of addition of data of supplies used and frequency of use of the various sanitation facilities in the school. I felt extremely comfortable in going to key night custodial staff people and asking if they would keep a record for me of the use of various supplies so that I can report that back as apparently a key part of the graduate study we were involved in. So I'm also concerned because I teach a course for which many of our special needs students are mainstreamed into that particular curriculum. They are attended by, in many cases, a one-on-one paraprofessional. The ongoing relationship that these students develop with their paraprofessional actually makes it possible for them to function in large classes that are relatively less structured than the regular academic classes and feel some sense of success and accomplishment and inclusion into a regular classroom setting. I am concerned that should we outsource those individuals, that kind of relationship would be inconsistent at best. And to me, the consistent representation of key personnel matched to key students who are in need is essential to their success. So thank you.
Georgine Warzinski, 141 Pheasant Fields Lane, Moorestown. I have had students go through the district. I'm a parent. I'm also president of MoreArts, and I'm here representing myself as well as some other select trustees at MoreArts. We're specifically concerned about the janitorial issue. We are in a unique position because we do support the arts throughout all the schools, and many of the arts activities that we participate in do happen after hours. And particularly in the WAMS facility and the high school facility, they are more unique than what you have in the elementary schools. The elementary schools wrap up the day. If you have an outsourced group coming in, they come in. There are some times when there are activities used, but the populations that use this building and the high school facilities are numerous. There are numerous groups, there are numerous types of participation. And we personally have been there when there's other people using the facilities. We feel that there's a totally different perspective with both the outsourced service people versus the internal people. Not that the cleaning and the basic skills related things are different, but it's the value added that comes with the people that are part of the staff. They understand the protocols, they understand the operational needs, they understand the students' aspects. Safety and security is a big issue. We have had more than one situation when we've been there where, because of current staff, they have questioned things or sent people away who weren't necessarily shouldn't even been in the building because they weren't supposed to be coming in, or they get into doors that because something has ended but they haven't quite locked the door, someone gets in, someone who's aware of it and understands the protocols takes a different stand from an organizational perspective. Having done outsourcing and made those decisions, they are tough decisions, they can be financially and physically responsible, but there are some things that come, and yes, you can still have the quality of reference checking, but it is different when someone who is part of the team understands the culture. The culture piece is not going to carry over whenever you have an outsourced organization versus the people who actually work on the staff. I do not think the years current staff has a relationship. I can't stress enough how they know from the student's perspective, but also the safety issue. They take pride in the school. It's more than just cleaning the classrooms. And I think that value added is a concept that's very hard to quantify. Security at a time when schools across the country are concerned about security, knowing that you've got people who are going to turn away the person who maybe, it's not the person who comes in from 2 to, or 8 in the morning until 2. It's what happens, because these buildings, many of them are open till 10 o'clock at night and sometimes beyond. And so, because we're in them, we see the difference between the staff who are the outsourced staff versus the current staff. And I want to respectfully disagree with the perspective that it's the same as cafeteria and bus drivers. It is not the same. The difference is when the cafeteria people and the bus drivers are there are still administrators there. When those custodial and janitorial people are there, many times they are the resident experts for the district. So, I appreciate your financial, and most of us a lot of people on the MoreArts trustees and the ones who I've spoken with who are concerned about this have had financial decisions that are tough to make. we appreciate the fiscal responsibility and the budgetary issues, but we really are concerned with safety and security perspective. For our students, as well as for, you have to look at the measuring of, you're getting income from renting the facility's got to be safe at the same time. And there's a big difference between, if you're going to rent the facility, then you need some type of consistency. So if you're not going to have it for the custodians, then you're going to need to have somebody else there that deals with those tenants that come in.
Hi there. My name is Leslie Clem, 111 West Central Avenue. I also didn't intend to speak this evening, but I felt the need after hearing a few things. The first thing I want to come back to is a little bit of circuitous logic that I just have not been able to parse yet from Ms. Sugars. I'm just trying to wrap my brain around this concept that if we're looking to the future and we're not sure what's going to happen 2 and 3 years down the line, why we wouldn't budget to cap this year, considering future budgets are based upon this year's budget. We are already cutting off what we can do in the future by our rather short-sighted outlook for this year, particularly when considering that if we do the budgeting that would just take us to cap, it wouldn't even go to a vote. It's automatic. Why wouldn't we take advantage of that? Particularly considering the towns all around us are doing the same thing, and thus they are able to support bringing back programs that had to be cut during the lean years, which we all acknowledge were there. Those programs right there benefit the folks who should primarily be the ones we're looking out for, and that's the kids. Your children, their children, my children. Because I have skin in this game, more than just as a teacher in this district for 20 years, a teacher who taught many of your children, by the way, and more than just as a taxpayer. I have a first grader at Baker School. I'm going to have another little one in there in a couple of years. This is incredibly important to me. And I do not like the direction that suddenly my school district is going in. It's incredibly short-sighted. Instead of reinstating programs, as Haddonfield is doing, as so many of the other districts are doing all around us, we're trying to cut corners. And let's talk about security while we're talking about cutting corners. This is something all school districts need to be on top of. Not on top of, out in front of, in light of all the things that have been happening all around us. And in this day and age, how can you possibly even think about getting rid of our internal personnel who watch out for the teachers, who watch out for the children, who watch out for even the folks in the outside groups that are coming in and out of after school? How can we even think about that? What we should be thinking about doing is cutting back on the outsourcing we already have and bringing back internal people that the district hires, the district background checks. Because you can tell us about TB checks, you can tell us about fingerprinting of the personnel that are hired by these outside sources. That's only done for the time that they've been in this country. We don't know what their background is prior to that. And if you think you're saving money on this, wait until the first lawsuit. Wait until the inevitable happens. And God forbid it's one of the children. I mean, it would be bad enough if it were happening to one of us. But God forbid it's one of the children. Because I feel at this point that we're the only ones looking out for them. I feel like suddenly the bottom line and providing tax breaks, $17 here, $17 there, is suddenly more important than the education and the safety and well-being of our children. I just don't understand where we're going with this. And I want to understand why we need to be so conservative with this year's budget, Ms. Sugars. Particularly when we don't know what's ahead. What was your logic behind that, other than the tax break?
Well, it's my job to present a budget to the board that the board agrees upon.
And you did originally, and then it got suddenly mysteriously cut. How did that happen?
Well, the board, weighed some of the uses of our fund balance and some of our other revenues and decided to take a look
That the
at
taxpayers were more important than the children?
Please don't put words in my mouth.
Not circuitous logic, because I'll stand up here and debate you all day.
You can debate me all you want, but, it's my job to present a budget that is supported by the Board of Education, and that's the budget that the Board of Education supported, so that's what I did.
Oh, okay, so the Board of Education is behind the cutting corners, the putting the taxpayer in front of the
The
children.
Board of Education is behind presenting a budget to the public that balances student need, taxpayer need, staff need, everything.
Where's the student need in not reinstating programs that we've lost during the lean years? Where's the student need behind making sure that our kids are safe when they're after school for the play, or they're after school for soccer practice, or they're after school simply to get extra help with their math?
Well, I think the board has considered all of those things.
Really? You're going to leave it at that? Okay then.
Beginning to sound like a broken record, I also was not planning to speak this evening, but I feel inclined to do so. My name is Hope Knight. When I'm not residing in Philadelphia, who is suffering from a very severe situation of their own in public education, I reside in E5. So I think I have something to say. I'm very concerned about the outsourcing of the night custodians, but I'm actually going to talk to you about the potential outsourcing of paras and what I have seen in my classroom. Because I see paras that are hired through the district, and I see paras that are outsourced. The paras that I see through the district care about their students. Through the choirs that I have had throughout the years, I have had various students with various needs throughout the years. And based on their needs, I have had paras stand on the risers, singing the music with their kids every concert. They don't get paid for that. They do that because they care. And you would not get that from somebody who's outsourced. You get that from somebody who cares about the kids. And I have several members of the board that have had kids that have come through my program, or are in my program currently, or will be in my program. And I need you to consider that. There have been other paras in my classroom with children with special needs that have been outsourced, that sit on their phones, that don't care what the child is doing. Now, I beg you, is that what you want? You have one that is there for the dollar, and you have one that is there to help the child. The one that is there standing, calming the special needs child coming in to make a difference, to stand on the risers, to sing a concert. That makes a difference. And that's what I'm concerned about. And I will fight tooth and nail. Because to me, that's all that matters. To see that child get up there and sing, that's all that matters. And if you ever want to see a picture of those paras, I have them in my classroom. You can come and look. Thank you.
of two of the multiply disabled teachers up at the high school. And Hope, I was planning on speaking tonight, but Hope, you inspired me to get up here quicker than I thought I was going to. I am that teacher that doesn't teach in a traditional classroom. I'm the teacher that goes to the Philadelphia Zoo, the mall. I take Patco over to the Reading Terminal Market. We take the River Line. We go to Target weekly. We go to ShopRite weekly. We go to Sam's Club weekly. We're up on the main street, up at the bank, up at the firehouse, finding out what the community resources are. We work at the public library. We take New Jersey Transit from the main street to the mall so that the students can figure out how to get to and from work when they leave us. We go to the laundromat. We go somewhere weekly in the community. And Hope brought up a good point. I need the paras that are consistent. I need the paras that I can trust. I need the paras that I know are going to keep my students safe. So please think about that when you choose to outsource.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Oh,
Good evening. Bill McDermott from the high school, 809 Main Street, Riverton. How many times has ABM been sued for not having criminal background checks on people coming into the district, either as their full-time employees or substitute employees that they use instead of the people assigned to the building? Thank you. I'd love to hear an answer to that. Is there an answer to that?
I was going to ask him, yeah. The question was, how many times has ABM been sued?
That's correct.
By us?
School districts. The studies out of Cornell and the studies out of Arizona say that there is no real cost-benefit analysis that says we're saving money by outsourcing 6 people. That's the current studies out of Cornell, Arizona State.
Okay, thank you. I don't know the answer to your question.
Wait, excuse me, if you don't know the answer to the question, then why are we considering outsourcing to them?
Sir, is it your statement that ABM has been sued?
Yes.
Thank you.
And they countersued against Arizona for disparaging their name as not having people who have passed criminal background checks.
Hey, keep me there.
I wasn't going to speak either, but I just have a few questions. How many of you, have you met the people that you might be firing tonight? Do you know anything about them? About their children? About any health conditions they may be having in their family? Do any of you have any idea what being fired does to you? I don't think it's funny. I really don't. Margaret Valora. I live in Mount Laurel, but I teach 7th and 8th grade language arts. I teach honors classes, I teach basic skills classes, enrichment. My job changed every year since I've been here, which is 17 years. And I'm going to share with you a conversation I had with your children less than 2 months ago. And it was shortly after Newtown. And prior to that, we do our, well, continuously, we do our lockdown drills. Really, we're we're on cue. We know what to do. We've been trained well, been trained by the best. We go into it. Newtown doesn't prepare you for anything. And if you don't think that that fear is residual in your children, I beg to differ. Because I had the conversation with an honors class. And it was shortly after Newtown, and you assuage them and you comfort them. And then there's the Boston situation. And I want you to know that as teachers, we are contracted. We have to be in our classrooms, bell to bell, as we are. However, we're kind of isolated. We really are. We're in our classrooms. We go out into the hallway, come back into our classrooms. We really rely on those familiar faces. I cannot stress that enough. And the people that we work with, we depend on each other. We know who they are. We know who to talk to. We go down to the office. We know immediately who's going to go there. So on this one particular morning, the students, you listen to them when they start bringing up these concerns. You have to listen to them. And I will stress to you that in the middle school, they think they're adults. Everybody wants a sense of security, including the teachers. But one of the students just looked at me and said, "What would we do, Mrs. Valora? What would we do if someone came down that hallway?" Because my classroom is down by a sidewalk. And sometimes vans will come in and out to gather up risers or materials I guess they transport to other schools. So it's common for us to see that. And they wanted to know, what would I do right now? What would you do, Mrs. Valora? And I did. I walked them through this scenario that I am walking them through, and they are hanging on my every breath. And I realized then they really are afraid. And I'm not sure I'm hearing this. I'm hearing financial issues, and I'm hearing contract law. I'm hearing it so much, but it's your children you have placed into our care. And I want to assure you, all you have to do is listen to CNN, and who is the one thrusting desks and anything to protect these children? And that's who you've entrusted us to, and we would all do it. So for you to take away familiar faces and the very people we depend upon, I'm a little surprised, because it's your children in our care, the ones who have expressed this concern, and I'm sure to everyone here. It took me off guard, it really did, because I didn't realize just how innate these fears are. They're coming to school with a whole new set of issues. We all had the air raid drills or, the fire. These people come into schools ready to go. There is no opportunity to, hit buzzers or whatever. But we do when we're trained. These kids are afraid. Don't lose sight of that. And I really don't appreciate that the very people that we work with and trust are going to be outsourced. I can't even believe I'm hearing that from the Moorestown Board of Education. I can't believe it.
I'm Angela Torben, music teacher at South Valley, and I reside at 102 Foxwood Drive. And I want to thank Peg and a couple other people for bringing up something I think is a very important point, and I want to thank you all for your very kind attention. She brought up us. We all know that we're here for the kids. I should know better. This is my job. Is that better? Okay, good. We all know about the kids, and we all know that we're here for the kids, and we all know that we're placed in the position of keeping these kids safe. I hate to think that I'm older, but I've been here since 1988, as long as you, Mr. Mishler, and I remember when we were talking about outsourcing the custodians on the elementary level, and I was shocked and appalled that more parents were not as shocked and appalled as I was. I stay in that building late at night, far past the hours that our children are there, and there are teachers also that stay there late in the evening. And at one point when this was brought up, the statement was made to us, well then, if you're concerned, go home earlier. That's not always possible. I can't bring a stage home with me or 8x11 stage flats or paint. That's not going to happen. And we are very dedicated to our jobs. We're very dedicated in what we do. We're very dedicated to our careers. And I'm just wondering if besides the children, that's a done deal. We're certainly concerned about the kids, but are you concerned about us? Initially, when those custodians came to our school, we had theft, we had language issues, language barriers, we had cleaning issues. Those things were worked out. But a lot of those things were worked out because there were teachers after school that caught those problems and reported them. Who from our district, after hours, not their supervisor, but who from our district is going to supervise and look after these people after hours? Shouldn't be my job. It shouldn't be any other teacher in our school who stays late. Who's going to be watching out for these people, aside from the children? I think that that's a very big deal, because we are on the forefront of everything. We are right there all the time. And as I said, sometimes we do have to stay late. Vito Germanario caught me there one night at 9:30. He just walked in and said, "What are you doing here?" I had to be there. I had no choice. And I knew the custodians at the time, so I was not concerned. And truth be told, I know the evening custodians now, and I like them. They're nice people. But we've still had some issues that we've had to work out. And I feel for them as much as I do for our custodians now, but they are people. We are people, the children are people, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. And I missed the last meeting, but I heard that someone compared us to blueberries. I'm not a blueberry. The kids are not blueberries. The custodians are not blueberries. You're not blueberries. And I really think the bottom line should be a lot more than just the bottom line. Thank you.
My name is Lorenzo Eagles. I live at 704 Devon Road. I'm also a teacher at the high school. And just to add to the chorus a little bit, for the 14 years I've been teaching the district, I've also coached. And if you asked any coach, well, just anecdotally, the first several years I actually worked in the middle school and I coached in the middle school. And I very quickly learned that there's one name you need to know in the middle school if you were coaching late at night, and that was Dave Canty. I can't tell you how many times in my first several years I would finish a basketball practice or a soccer practice or coming from track, and the one guy I needed to get me into a room, break down a gate, to get a kid to a locker room, get anywhere, was Dave Canty. I knew Dave's name because Dave, did everything I could possibly ask him to have done to help me get through those early years of my coaching career. I'd like to think that I don't have to yell his name as much anymore, but I do. I now coach at the high school, and he's there, and I'm still running after Dave on nights to try to get the help that I need when something comes up urgently. I know him by name. I know who he is. I know his family. He knows me. He asks about my kids. And the concept of value added has been brought up a lot of times. I really think that in your effort to find fiscal responsibility, which is noble in a lot of ways, we're missing those things that you just cannot quantify in our pursuit of a bottom line budget. And I really fear what's going to happen when I need to find Dave Canty and I can't find Dave, but I find someone I don't know who wasn't there. I mean, Dave knows more about these buildings than anyone I've ever met. And I'm sure you can say the same about the custodial staff now and people like that. Yeah. They've been here a long time. I really think you lose that if you go to someone that you know 1 month and you don't know the next month. I mean, the night guys who clean the rooms in the high school I work now, Dan was absent. He was out for a week for surgery. And let me tell you, the guy in his room, I walked into him cleaning my room. He might have been the nicest guy in the world, but it wasn't Dan, and it freaked me out. And I think there's something to be said for that. The consistency that comes with knowing a name and a face who does a good job, and the value added from that is priceless. So I ask you to consider that as you make your decisions tonight. Thank you.
Tonight in our executive session, we did have 5 of the nighttime staff in our meeting. Talked about, as I think Pam suggested, their personal issues and families, etc. Whether those 5 are 5 of the people that are affected by this proposal, we don't know at this point. At least I don't know. But they were invited and came to our executive session. Second, I am very familiar with what it's like to not have the job you want and to have to start all over again. And if you thought I was thought that was funny, I'm not sure what my expression was, but I wasn't trying to be funny because I know it's not funny at all. And number 3, at our June 25th meeting, we will be addressing the bringing back of paraprofessionals. Right now, we're going through all of the assignments on a school-by-school basis, and we're finishing the IEP. So at this time, there has been no discussion about that issue until we know how many people will be necessary. So I invite you back for June 25th to hear that discussion. And I'll move on to the recommendations of the superintendent.
I need a motion to approve, recommending the board approve the Moorestown Township Public Schools 3-year technology plan starting July 1st, 13 through June 30th, 2016.
Second.
Everyone received this, correct, over the weekend?
Yeah.
Questions for Mr. Betts? Was this reviewed by the technology committee? Yes, it was. Questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? President.
Thank you.
Next item we have on your agenda is the travel expenditure approval request. This item is tabled for now. I'm sorry. The next item on the agenda is the travel expenditure approval request, and this item has been tabled for now. Item number-
Well, I guess this is for Brian. Do you understand what we were looking for was the course content? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
The annual meeting notice, item number 2, it is recommended that the schedule of regular monthly board meetings and special executive meetings be adopted as listed on Exhibit 13-286.
So moved.
Questions on the meeting schedule? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? President Zahn.
Annual tuition rates, it is recommended that the board approve the following tuition rates for the 2013-14 school year.
Second.
Questions?
Yes, Ms. Sugars, I don't need exact numbers, but just roughly, what are the increases this year?
They're anywhere from maybe $300 to about $1,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? President Zahn.
Item 4, purchasing agreement. A resolution is requested approving participation in the National Intergovernmental Purchasing Alliance as per the agreement attached as Exhibit 13-287. This is just another avenue for us to look at different consortiums, purchasing consortiums. We're in the process of evaluating copy machines at the administration building, and the particular vendor that we're interested in is a member of this consortium. So that's why we're asking for this approval.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? President Zahn.
Item number 5, the 2013 NCLB Consolidated Grant Amendment. I recommend the board authorize the submission of the NCLB Consolidated Grant Amendment number 1 for the application of fiscal year 2013 and accepts the grant award of these funds upon the subsequent approval of the fiscal year 2013 NCLB amendment application.
Second.
Questions? favor?
Aye.
Opposed? President.
Bid award for classroom ceiling mounted projector project phase 6. A resolution is requested awarding the bid for classroom ceiling mounted projector project phase 6 to DFX as the only bidder on the project in the amount of $148,002.86. The project is for the installation of 33 ceiling mounted projection video systems in various schools throughout the district.
So moved.
Questions? Sure.
How does this compare to prior years as far as cost and has there been any change in the process?
The need was based on work that Mrs. Butler and Mr. Nuzzi did in trying to get all of our classrooms. I believe this is the final phase to get all of our classrooms up to speed and sort of having a model classroom in terms of what type of equipment is in there. The only issue with this bid versus other bids is it's slightly higher due to some electrical work that has to be done. But we've worked with DFX twice. They've been the low bidder for the past 2 phases. And this will be the 3rd phase that we're working with them. Yes.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? President's aye.
Janitorial services bid. A resolution is requested awarding the base bid and alternate 1 and 2 for janitorial services to ABM Northeast as the lowest responsible bidder in the amounts as listed.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Questions?
Yes, Mr. Mitchell, I have several questions, if that's
Sure.
all right. First question I have is, has there or was there any discussions between the board or the administration and the MEA about alternates to potential outsourcing? Were there any discussions at all?
We didn't even know about it until like the day before you guys were
But, well, it's been about, in between, it's been about, what, about 3 weeks now since last? I'm just asking at all, has there been any discussions?
No.
Okay. And ABMs are a current contractor, is that correct?
Correct.
And if we've heard some general issues with language barriers and other things that are going on, but to the level of some of the concerns expressed about ABM outside of our usage, have we had anything of that level at all happen here, or know about anything of that level happen here or locally?
In terms of
Some of the allegations about some of the sexual misconduct, other things that have happened outside of our general area that was brought to our attention in the last couple of meetings.
no.
And the last question I have is, it's one of the things we've heard a couple times tonight, it's about the familiarity that people have and the comfort they have with their current staff. So was there any, or has there been any discussion about if we decide to outsource, if we hired somebody part-time as a liaison for a period of time, has there been any discussion about that so that there could possibly be some weaning off of the, if we decided down this road, and whether or not that could actually be feasible and still realize some of the savings that we're looking at?
That is not a discussion that we have.
Well, we've had some internal discussion about various variations on the theme that you just posed, and we haven't found one that made sense to us.
I don't remember seeing it, so I just want to make sure the discussion's been had somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Chris. So the building hours in WAMS versus the other buildings that are currently using outsourced janitorial services. Tell me
Wait,
what
can
the
you
differences
speak
are.
up, please? I can't
Sorry.
hear you, I'm sorry.
The question was around what are the differences in the hours for the buildings that are currently using outsourced janitorial services versus WAMS, and other differences between them?
Currently, the elementary schools dismiss at 3:30, and ABM is on staff by 3 o'clock. UES dismisses at 3 o'clock, and the ABM start time is at 2:30. High school dismisses around 2, and the staff comes in at 3. We tend to schedule that so that there's some overlap between the custodians that are there during the day and the nighttime custodians that come in, so there can be conversations about things going on in the building. If there's a particular item that has to be addressed at WAMS than the elementary schools. UES has some activity, probably not as much as what's going on in the middle school.
And on the bidding process, is it typical to have a 3-year agreement versus shorter durations, or is this pretty standard in terms of how we go about this?
Generally, for a bid like this, 3 years is pretty standard. You tend to get better prices when you do that. You also tend to be able to develop a relationship with the contractor. The longer the contractor thinks they're going to be there, the more of a relationship you can develop with them. We have traditionally done 3-year contracts with 2-year extension renewal options.
And how many outsourced janitorial resources do we use from our current provider in the district?
From ABM?
Yes.
We currently have 12 employees with ABM.
And have we ever had to dismiss any employees from ABM?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes. Yes.
I can only speak to the time that I've been here today. I don't know what happened prior to my time being here. And the time that I have been here, I'm only aware of.
So there was a request on our behalf to have somebody removed for some infraction.
Yes.
That's it for me, thank you.
Other questions?
Yes, Ms. Sugars, if the board did take this route to go to ABM, and what is currently in place even, if there is a conflict or there's a problem, is there a site supervisor we can address that with? Is there an overall manager? What is the process?
There is a site supervisor that covers the current areas that are outsourced. There would be a lead person assigned to the middle school that would be here just for the middle school.
Thank you.
People who actually work in the buildings every day and are there until 9, 10 o'clock at night. I mean, let's talk reality here. Honestly. I'm in this building till 10 o'clock at night, and for you to sit there and say there's a carryover time is simply not true. There's one head custodian at the elementary school, so there's no carryover time. The person at the middle school goes, I mean, they are the ones who are here. The people at the high school, they have a constant flow. So the head custodian leaves at 2:30, the night crew is there. The one at the high school doesn't even come into contact unless there's a problem. And please do not tell me there's a supervisor on duty. I have had to call the supervisor. Why might you ask that? Well, because the night lead at the high school, our employee, could not communicate with the person in the subcontracting unit. Because he was going to mop the floors when CASA was going to have their January event that we used to have. Remember the event, Brandon, when we filled the auditorium? You had all those people going to the A Hall. He was going to mop the floor when about 500 people were getting ready to walk in there. So in a panic, he says to me, "You speak Spanish." Yes, I'm a Spanish teacher. I'm not Rosetta Stone. I'm the Spanish teacher, okay? I teach Spanish. So he said, "Can you please communicate with this man and let him know he can't mop the floors? Because these people are coming in." So what did I do? I called his supervisor because I had to explain to him, and he said to me, "You have to tell my supervisor in Spanish, I just can't not do what I'm supposed to do." So I called the supervisor, and what did the supervisor say? "Oh, put me on the phone with the person." And they spoke again in Spanish, so he didn't do it. So please do not act like there's a supervisor on call who can come at any time. That's not true. And if you think that is not true, and nor will it be true if they subcontract here. There will not be someone on site, and just like one of the community members said, it doesn't matter. They still won't know the kids, they won't know what to do, they won't know how to take care of any issue. That's the bottom line. That's the real bottom line. I find that offensive. You
Thank
don't
you.
know what the complaints were.
Chris, do you have any questions that haven't been addressed yet? Excuse me.
No, Mr. Bishop, I think all of my questions are asked.
Cheryl? Kathy?
No.
We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
No.
Well, wait, let me get the ayes first. Let's call a roll. Yeah, call a roll.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
No.
Mr. Pugh?
Yes.
Mrs. Solwin?
No.
Mr. Simeon?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
No.
Mrs. Zajac?
No.
Mrs. Goldenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Mishler?
Yes. Can we,
We have another motion.
yeah, go ahead.
I recommend the board approve the reduction in force resolution attached as Exhibit 13-289.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstain.
Wait.
No. So I voted no. That's it.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, let me just call the roll. Does everybody have this? That is it? All right, point out the exhibit just so everybody has it. Well, as soon as everybody's ready. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the exhibit? So call the roll, Mr. Shivers.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Powell?
No.
Mr. Pugh?
Abstain.
Mrs. Solwin?
No.
Mr. Simeon?
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein?
No.
Mrs. Zajac?
I have to abstain.
Mrs. Goldenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Mishler?
Yes. It's a reduction in force motion. Seven votes.
Yes.
Where are the people who are saving all the money? They're not here wasting their money. So people that are saving 17 cents, they're not dying.
I want to make sure we have the vote.
there seems to have been 2 votes just taken, so that we can understand for the record, what were those 2 votes? The first one and the second, and what was the vote count?
As I understand it, well, the first vote was with respect to accepting the bid from ABM. And that vote was 5-4 in favor, correct, Lynn? The second vote was a reduction in force, which would be a motion to affect the employees that would be displaced by... And that vote was 4-3 with 2 abstentions. So it does not have a majority of the board to carry that vote. And our suggestion is that we take 10 minutes to discuss the options that we have before us, and then come back and decide how we're going to deal with it.
May I ask a follow-up question to that? Because of the outcome of the second vote, does it nullify the first vote?
That's what we're discussing. Yes.
It's possible.
From my point of view, if the employees aren't fired, the savings doesn't accrue, then the point of taking that bid is nullified. So, and the other bidder for the base bid was slightly lower than ABM's bid. So,
Is there a requirement to go with the low bid?
yes.
And so we didn't go with the low bid, we went with ABM.
No, we went with the low bid.
Okay.
With the alternate, yes. Okay, so we're going to take 10 minutes to discuss our options. We are back in session. Mr. Rizzo, you want to describe your analysis?
I took time to look at the board bylaws on voting. There was nothing in the board bylaws that required a majority of the full board. There's nothing in the statute that requires it. Sometimes the board bylaws will change the statute, and in this case it did not. So a 4-3 vote is sufficient to carry the vote.
Can we have a reset?
Sure.
Now that you've had a discussion.
I checked the board bylaws on voting. I checked the statute, and there's nothing in the bylaws that require a majority of the full board to carry this type of vote. Therefore, a 4-3 vote carries it.
So we can't have a revote after you just had a discussion among your group?
So even though they're abstaining makes a difference now in a different manner. True. And
The
we
board
didn't see a
bylaws
vote.
specifically state that abstentions do not count as a yes or no vote.
Well, correct. So
now
people know that their vote might have mattered.
Right now,
Had a different impact